Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, where danger lurks at every corner, and even your worst enemy could become your only hope. Warning: in today's thrilling tale, Zombie Prison, Inmates and Guards Unite, everything we think about control and order is turned upside down. Man-Zombie, a maximum security prison, becomes ground zero for a terrifying zombie outbreak. The walls that once kept the prisoners in are now the only thing keeping them alive. Man running. Kaboom! But when the infected break through, will the inmates and guards put aside their differences to survive? Or will their hatred be their downfall? Ag! Wow! If you're ready for a story of unexpected alliances, heart-pounding action, and the ultimate fight for survival, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Direct hit, you don't want to miss this. Bell, leave a comment below on how you think you'd survive a zombie prison outbreak.
The deafening clang of metal echoed through the prison as the morning shift began. Maximum security. Lockdown. The guards stood tall in their dark uniforms, eyes trained on every movement. Behind the bars, the inmates lived in a world of violence, distrust, and survival. Inmates like Tyrone, the Blade Mercer, a notorious gang leader who commanded respect with a glance, and Jackson Hammer O'Leary, an ex-Marine whose loyalty to his fellow prisoners was only matched by his hatred for the guards. On the other side of the line stood Warden Malcolm Reyes, a no-nonsense man who ran the prison with an iron fist. He believed in strict rules, and for years, his method kept the chaos at bay. But today was different. An eerie silence hung in the air. Unusual. Normally, by this time, the prison was alive with the sounds of shouting and metal scraping. But today, it felt wrong. Reyes looked out over the yard, his instincts tingling. Something was coming. "Sir, you need to see this," came the voice of Officer Clark, a rookie who had only been on the job for a few months. Reyes followed him to the security office, where the monitors displayed the outside world. The usual barren parking lot was filled with people, but not just any people. Mindless figures shuffling slowly toward the gates. Pale skin, hollow eyes, blood-stained clothes. "They're here," Reyes muttered, a chill running down his spine. The first breach came quickly. Alarms blared as the gate outside the prison yard buckled under the weight of the advancing horde. Guards scrambled to close the main doors, but it was too late. The undead flooded into the yard, overwhelming anyone in their path. The prisoners, many of whom were outside for their daily exercise, were caught off guard. Tyrone, always quick to act, grabbed a nearby piece of metal and smashed it into one of the zombies' heads. His crew followed his lead, fighting with whatever they could find. But it wasn't enough. The zombies kept coming. Warden Reyes stood in the control room, watching in horror. "Lock down the cell blocks. Get everyone inside," he ordered. But the chaos outside was spreading too fast. Amid the confusion, Jackson O'Leary found himself back-to-back with Officer Clark, the rookie guard he despised. They fought off the zombies together, their hatred for one another momentarily forgotten. "Don't get used to this, Hammer," Clark growled as he fired his shotgun into the chest of an approaching zombie. "I don't like you either, but if we don't stick together, we're both dead," Jackson shouted, using his brute strength to hurl a zombie off a nearby prisoner. The two enemies, now forced to work side by side, made their way into the prison's inner halls. There, they found a small group of survivors, prisoners, guards, all equally terrified. Tyrone was among them, his sharp eyes scanning the group. "Looks like we're all in this together now," he said grimly. Reyes arrived, bruised and bloody, but alive. He faced the group. "Listen up. I don't care what you were before. Right now, we're all that's left. We either fight together, or we die. Is that clear?" Silence filled the room. Then, one by one, heads nodded. They had no choice. The prison's thick walls had kept them safe for now, but it wouldn't last. Supplies were limited, and the undead kept coming. Reyes knew that the only way to survive was to escape the prison and reach the armory on the other side of the city. But the thought of getting across zombie-infested streets sent shivers down his spine. Jackson and Tyrone, the natural leaders of their respective groups, agreed on a plan. They would split into two teams. one to distract the zombies, the other to scavenge for supplies and weapons. It was a risky strategy, but it was their only shot. As night fell, the two groups set off. Tyrone and his crew led the distraction, using makeshift weapons to lure the zombies into the yard. Meanwhile, Jackson, Clark, and a few others slipped through the shadows, searching for anything they could use to fight back. The prison, once a fortress of order, had turned into a war zone. Blood stained the walls, and the moans of the undead echoed through the halls. But the survivors fought on. Tension simmered between the prisoners and the guards. Old grudges were hard to forget, even with death around every corner. Clark, who had always seen the inmates as little more than animals, struggled to trust Tyrone and his men. Likewise, Tyrone's crew didn't believe the guards would hesitate to throw them to the zombies if it meant saving themselves. One night, during a quiet moment in the makeshift bunker they'd secured, Tyrone confronted Reyes. "Tell me something, Warden," he said, eyes narrowing. "When this is all over, what happens to us? You gonna toss us back in our cells? Or are we just meat for you to feed to the zombies?" Reyes met his gaze. "I don't know what happens after this, Mercer, but I do know that right now, we're all we've got. You want to survive? You help us. I don't care what you've done in the past." Tyrone stared him down for a long moment before nodding. "All right, Warden, but when the time comes, don't expect us to just go back to our cages." Days passed, and the situation grew more desperate. Supplies ran out, and more zombies breached the outer gates. It was only a matter of time before the inner sanctum fell. The survivors had one last shot. They needed to take a bus from the prison's transportation garage and drive through the horde to escape the city. But the plan went south when the garage was overrun. Tyrone, Jackson, and Reyes fought their way through the swarm, protecting each other as they went. In a moment of bravery, Clark sacrificed himself, drawing a group of zombies away from the bus to give the others time to escape. His final words echoed in their minds as they roared out of the prison yard. They crashed through the gates, the undead clawing at the vehicle from every side. Jackson drove like a madman, plowing through anything in their way. Tyrone and Reyes manned the makeshift barricades, holding off the zombies. As the city came into view, hope flickered for the first time in days. But their journey wasn't over yet. They had escaped the prison, but the world beyond was just as dangerous. The undead were everywhere, and the fight for survival had only begun. They had lost many along the way, but those who survived knew one thing: they were stronger together. The walls of the prison had divided them for years, but the zombie outbreak had forced them to realize that, in the end, everyone was equal in the face of death. Warden Reyes looked over the group. Prisoners, guards, all united in their struggle. "We made it," he said quietly, "but we've got a long way to go." Tyrone nodded, his face hardened by the losses they'd endured. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." Jackson, covered in blood and grime, grinned. "Good. I was getting bored." As the survivors drove toward an uncertain future, one thing was clear. In a world where the dead walked, only those willing to stand together had a chance at survival.